Okay. At 11:38 AM, I will call to order a special boarding of the village board of trustees of the village debate. Roll call. Harf.
Chapel here.
Bell here.
White here. Austin here.
Robert here. Hey. Motion to approve the agenda would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Housen. Second by Harf. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Comments, correspondence, concerns from the public? Anybody? Yes.
Just stand up just because my voice carries better.
Sure. Sure, your name and address. Great.
My name is Jerry Smythe. I live at 10683 Woodcrest Lane. Mr. Bay. And this is so important to me that normally I would get contemporaneously, but I have written down. I hope I would have said also. My husband Dick and I deeply regret the departure of Julie Schrumpler, Sister Bay's administrator. She has been fiercely devoted to the welfare of the village of Sister Bay, and she has been the most effective and judicious administrator Dick and I have experienced during our almost 20 years of residence. And she was just given a 4.37 rating on her the 1 to 5 scale in Sister Bay. Her vision has been long-term. How do we ensure the quality of living in Sister Bay into future decades? Expansive, considering the needs of Sister Bay residents at all economic levels, and visionary, preserving and enhancing our physical environment, which is the bedrock of human existence. During Julie Schmelter's relatively short time in Sister Bay, she has secured tens, if not hundreds of thousands of grant dollars for Sister Bay projects. We trust we will see a full tally of the grant dollars she was responsible for securing. That tally can serve as a benchmark for future administrators. Julie Schmelter's early departure and the number of senior staff resignations in the recent past raises many questions, reflects very poorly on a majority of Sister Bay board members, and should be a matter of significant concern for all Sister Bay citizens. It is not a responsible display of leadership to avoid informing the public whom you are elected to serve by hiding behind an endless series of executive sessions. The board's bottom line should be transparency with and responsibility to all the residents of Sister Bay. The notice for this meeting did not include a copy of the proposed administrator agreement. When and where will that be available? We do wholeheartedly endorse having a zoning administrator as well as a village administrator. We hope those of you who understand why Sister Bay has had multiple staff leave and why this administrator is leaving early will find a way to speak up and shed some light on village board operations over the last few years.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone else like to speak? Is there anybody online? Okay, on to discussion items. For a job description, village administrator, zoning administrator.
Okay, so as Mary said, I have resigned. You know, I was looking at May of next year and I pushed that up. Knowing that I was resigning, I did approach the personnel committee and asked them to look at the job description of the administrator. We discussed, you know, should the zoning administrator be separate from the village administrator? There's a lot of reasons why you should do that. But that is not budgeted at this time. So what the committee has forwarded for your review is a village administrator / zoning administrator like we have right now. The job description is very similar to what it was before. We just made some minor tweaks to it. But the committee did ask that it be forwarded to the board for approval. And then Louise, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. No, we looked at it a few different times and we also looked at Julie and I think, I don't know if Kurt did or not, but we looked at some other village administrator job descriptions throughout the state to make sure that there was a consistency and that we weren't missing anything. And we also discussed the general, not general, the current landscape as it relates to municipal government, whether it's in the state of Wisconsin or Illinois or wherever. Some have administrators, some don't. Some have administrators and very few have administrators and zoning managers. Some have, it's sort of all over the board, so that's why a job description is critical. Job title is one thing. What they actually do, and what we want them to do is as important. So that was sort of how we approached it, because there are many including in the county of Door. There are several municipalities that do not have an administrator. So, or just recently have appointed one. So anyway, that's how we approached it. And certainly leaned on Julie for her input on, what she thought the most important skills were, both from a, experience wise and understanding, village, county, state, and federal statutes. And based on her experience. So I think we did a thorough job.
I think one thing we did add was with Vlad asking to no longer be the finance director and instead being the finance specialist. We did add to this job description that the administrator would have more budget responsibilities than the position currently has.
So for village administrators, there's really two tracks, is my understanding. You've got ones that are more zoning focused and you've got ones that are more finance focused. Is that generally true, or?
Yeah, it's normally you'll have them being more budget focused, finance focused, and then community development focused.
Okay.
So, and
Which
zoning is
includes
part of
zoning,
community
yeah.
development.
Okay,
My strength, of course, and what is the community development side.
Do you think it's reasonable to have someone who knows a lot about zoning, but also has to take on more financial responsibility too? Do you think that would be overwhelming?
I think it's overwhelming, and I think it's hard to find somebody because
Who could do that?
when you go to school for public administration, you pick that track, you pick your focus.
Okay,
And like I said, mine is the community development side.
so you go to school for it, it's very defined at some point what okay.
It is now. If you have an old administrator, somebody who went to school, a long time ago, longer than me. It could be that throughout their career, they've had a job where maybe it was more budget focused, and then maybe their next job was community development focused, so they get a blend of that.
Okay.
I mean, I have budget experience, I have budget education.
Mm-hmm.
My background is county government.
Okay.
Village budgeting is different, so, yeah, I'm not saying they're not out there. You're just probably gonna get an older person, would be my guess,
Okay.
to have both skills.
Okay.
Chen,
Why aren't we trying to fill this position with two people? Having more of a community focused, boots on the ground person out there, being the front of our village. As an administrator, and then having a zoning specialist or somebody that understands zoning very well to be in the weeds of that part of it. I know I said this before, I think we're better served as a community to have finding that perfect person, and it's no offense to anybody, it's just they're two different type jobs. Two different type personalities of jobs. Where, I think Julie's really good at doing a lot of the stuff, but she spends her time in her office doing a lot of her stuff, which needs to be done. I still want somebody out in the community more. I think we're lacking that. And I know we have an SBA as a face of the community, kind of, as far as promoting events, and that's cool, but they're not the village. I'm for having two jobs for this.
Jen, I'll say, as the employee in the position, I think the way it's set up right now is a detriment to the position and to the village. Because when your administrator is also, and paraphrasing here, but when they're also the bad guy,
Mm.
you know, we have to say, no, you can't do this. You've seen how people, and we've all seen people say negative things about me because they didn't get what they wanted on something or things didn't go as planned. Those are zoning things they're not happy with. So there's a lot of reason to separate that because, in government, there's a good cop, bad cop. So your good cop is usually your administrator and your bad cop is your zoning administrator. And in Sister Bay, you're both. And I think it has ruined the reputation of the position. I think that, and I know in the past, you know, you've had other administrators that maybe didn't have the same struggles, but you also weren't doing the amount of stuff that you're doing now. And let's face it, society has changed. Civility is not what it used to be in many areas, and that's just a reality. So I do think the village is better served by having an administrator and a zoning administrator. And we've talked about that, you know, and the committee's talked about that. I remember back when Tasha was here, that was a conversation. But again, it's the budget aspect of it.
So let's say it wasn't the budget aspect of it. Is a zoning administrator a full-time job?
Yeah.
Okay, so in Egg Harbor and in Gibraltar, a lot going on.
Well, I don't think Gibraltar is a fair comparison because they're a town, so there's just
Egg
that,
Harbor. lot
yeah,
going
Egg
on.
Harbor would be a
Yeah,
better comparison.
so it seems to work well. No zoning administrator. Lot of work, lot of work.
Well, we decided as a
Um,
village to waste a lot of our time going after people with their weeds in a car parked on the grass a little bit over here. We have created so much more time consumption that I think our staff is too valuable for. There is so much more. The things that I hear you dealing with or the staff dealing with drives me crazy as a board member that this is what our staff is having to deal with, or at least at significant levels of time. And I think there's been a push to create more and more and more and more and more and more nitpicky rules to suck so much of their time. And I don't like that. 4 years ago, we weren't that way. We weren't that way. And I'm a neighbor, man. Come to me. I'll come to you. Let's talk. This anonymous complaining and people getting people, we either got to get everybody, we got to go to every house and write down every violation every house has, or we got to get nobody. We got to figure out a balance here because it is so, the way it is done is so detrimental to the feeling of community here. And it's the main reason I came back to the board, because so many people were so fed up with the loss of feeling of community here. And we just keep making more moves to try to be a big city. And we don't have to be a big city. We can be a cool, awesome, community-minded village, because that's what we are. So you know, when we sit here and charge $1,000 for an STR and you add up all that money and then you get staff to justify their spending all that time doing that, well, then they would have 0 hours to do the rest of their jobs, right? So we have to figure out ways, whether it's through AI, whether it's saying, hey, here's our process on how to do this, to allow our professionals to have more time to do professional jobs. And as it's currently being operated in this village, I don't know how they can.
Chad, that's a good point. I mean, your codes, you know, I've been done zoning in different jobs for 40 years. And you have the most cumbersome, challenging code.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
terrible.
All the communities I've worked in.
It's terrible. And it keeps getting more cumbersome.
It requires a lot of time. There's a lot of rules.
Mhm.
You know, normally if something's a permitted use, staff goes through, does it meet the code? We issue it, you're out the door. We don't do that in Sister Bay. Permitted uses. A house, the administrator just does over her desk. Permitted use, but many permitted uses go to the plan commission and the board, sometimes the board. There's layers and meetings, you know,
There's
there's
too much control. There's too much.
there's several
personal
plan
opinion.
commission, there's several plan commission meetings, there's board meetings, there's development agreements, so there's all these layers which consume a lot of time.
Yeah.
So you may also wanna think about down the road. Is having a consultant come in and evaluate the whole process. And we've talked of, and the plan commission knows that there's some challenges there, you know, and so we've also talked about looking at the code and redoing the whole code.
It's been a conversation since I can remember in this village.
Yeah, so I mean, those are valid
But we
points.
just keep making changes to a bad code. And I'm not saying all those changes are ill intended, I don't believe that, but it's just. It makes it more cumbersome rather than more fluid.
Yeah, so you've got, so you really, you know, what comes first? You fix the problem or you hire the person to.
Well, I think if
so
we
your
hire the
administration
person, we have to
succeeds.
commit to fixing the problem.
You hire a
Yeah.
person. to
And,
work
and,
with
and help
Fix
and
the
work with them on
But that,
that.
the person doesn't fix the problem. They're
No,
not-
no, that's our
they
job.
fix the problem.
That's our job.
No, a consultant fixes it. So we have, so what we do is, we buy Wiltsey. And then we decide we're gonna be a developer, and now we have a zoning issue, so now we need more zoning for help. We buy Lagerquist. And so that now creates more work and more related to zoning and more of that. And then we have lots where we create affordable housing, which is zoning, which is more work. So this is all self-inflicted. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but what did we expect? When we bought 57 acres, 40 acres. I don't know, 48, what did we expect?
Yeah, that's
So,
more.
I mean, what do you expect? Come on. So, to me, you know, what, we could hire another zoning person. Have them work with a bad code. Spend whatever we're gonna spend on if we can find one, a zoning administrator to work with a bad code. To develop, everybody says we need more housing, so now we're developers. And they're gonna work with that code, and then we're gonna buy something, you know, it doesn't make any sense. We need to fix the code so that it's manageable, not just for our, not just for our administrative, not just for our office. You know, what short-term rentals owners have to go through to renew in Sister Bay is much more cumbersome and much more time consuming than any other municipality, period. It's not, period, it's just what it is. I'm just, ask any of them. What developers have to go through. Some won't even work with us because of the code. So this is all something that I'm not saying that this diabolical, I don't think it's this diabolical plan, it's just what organically has happened over the years, and here we are. So, you know, somebody has to manage this terrible code that we keep adding to and making more complicated. So what is it? Okay, we want to spend another 65 grand for a zoning administrator that's gonna pull their hair out?
Well, I think
With
we
a
have,
loud
we have to commit.
Fine,
Bridget had a.
Sorry, I just want to say, I actually agree with all three of you. I think our code is way too complicated. I think we should put on a future agenda to look at revising the code, bringing somebody in to revise the code. I think the rules are so nitpicky that it's difficult for someone with knowledge of it to get through it without questions. And it also completely paints her as the bad guy in almost every situation because people don't know she's just enforcing the rules that are in front of her. I think I
but
hear it a
it's
lot.
so complicated
I hear it a
that they don't understand it.
Right. They,
And you're
yes.
trying to defend a code that you don't even
So I
think
think
is right.
I think it's worth, I know you guys wrote the job description and I know that you've got a headhunter coming in who's gonna do that. I think it's worth looking at adding a zoning administrator who will work with a new code that we come up with.
Julie, a question for you. So there's a lot of interpretation to our code. I mean, that's my perception of it, looking at that code versus some other code out there. Does that make it more complicated for you and does that make your job more challenging or less challenging or?
I guess I don't think there's a lot of interpretation.
Okay,
So, you know, I think it depends on the case. You probably hear about cases where we have to do that. It's just that the code, don't get me wrong, the code has a lot of good parts to it. But there's also a lot of, there's a lot of things where your staff can't make that decision, and it always has to go up a ladder. And that takes time, and that takes money for the applicant, you know, so I think cleaning a lot of that up would help. I do wanna say though that Wiltsey, Lagerquist, those really don't impact your zoning administrator. I mean, we're not doing anything on Wiltsey.
Not
We're
yet.
not doing anything.
But eventually they
with
will.
Lagerquist.
Not yet.
Eventually.
Eventually, when people get.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 5 years for Wiltsey, 3 years for, and they sit for, I don't know, 2-3 million bucks.
Something that I've heard from a number of administrators in Wisconsin and Illinois is that they've actually got third parties doing some of the zoning administration. And I, that's only something I've recently heard. I don't know how many, and something that was said to mirror what Chad and Julie have said is that makes them the bad guy. That puts your administrator in a position of saying, okay, well, we're gonna try and figure a way out around this, because in a way, you're trying to figure out a way around yourself, which is a bizarre situation that leads to frustration, I'm sure, for you and also for the applicant.
Well, and it also, aside from everything else we talked about, it's also not fair to the employee. I mean, you hire them for 40 hours, they're salaried, so you expect they're gonna do more hours, but is it fair that consistently they're putting in, I mean, there's certain seasons where it's easily 60 hours a week. I don't think that's fair to your employee, and I think, you know, I live alone, my son's up overseas, my kids live in Kakana. So for me, it's what I do, right? It's my life. If I work 60 hours a week, who cares? Most people have a family. And most people don't wanna do that. And what you're doing is you combine the jobs and you increase the salary, that all makes sense. But are you better off even, I don't wanna say drop the salary, because you know what the salaries are for administrators, but it's hard on an employee to put in that much time.
Agreed, for
Most
sure.
employees are not gonna work that, most people will not work that for you,
Mhm.
and you get what you pay for.
Well, and over the last couple of years, this village has created a lot more work. Without somebody coming in wanting to build a house or somebody wanting to put a driveway,
Yeah.
they've created, this village has created a lot more work.
Yeah.
For our staff. I mean, I see it.
We have it, and I've done a lot of that myself, Chad, but that's also because that's what, like, let's talk about a trail. That's because the public has said, we want trails, and we want.
The trails is where, yeah, I want your time. Those are good things for the community, but some of it's just backwards looking things to basically become cumbersome to almost harass people into having them do something that should be relatively easy, be such a pain in the ass. That just takes a lot of time. Trust me, I know it takes a lot more time. I want you spending times on trails and what can we do with Wiltsey one day in the forward thinking things. That's what I want our village, all of us to be spending our time on. Right? But it's just been looking backwards and getting people, and then when bad code comes up, it's not addressed and changed. Sometimes it is, but rarely. I mean, rarely is it even changed. I mean, and we have to have the bandwidth to do that. I would love for you to type something up on, if you have time before you leave, about some of the processes that you think are unnecessary for that staff should be able to do and not coming to the planning board. Because I agree with you, because I look at some of these plan meetings and it is opinions and it is personal beliefs. It isn't code. And that is so dangerous. So dangerous how we operate many, not all the time, but a lot of times. And that's dangerous because we're at risk when we do that. Decide what we want to be, decide how tall we want to build our buildings, decide what colors they can be even, but then just let the person do what they want to do. And if we don't want to have condos, great. If we don't want to have this, great. Let's decide that. And then let staff say that's allowed. Here's what you can do. But it's getting so nitpicky.
Kurt,
So-
you have something to say?
Do I have
Yeah,
something
yeah, I heard you
to
say-
want to hear?
Well, why?
I heard, you're on the
Okay,
board.
here's the deal, man. I mean, there's certain things like Chad's been talking about that is nitpicky crap I hate. And Julie was part of making this happen with Denise Bertle on Okay, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna put 4 trees at the end of the driveway. You can no longer drive in a circle. There's one just north of you that looks dumb as heck. My neighbor who just, his wife died, 40-foot front to his property on his driveway, 40 feet. Well, they can only be 24. So this new neighbor of mine has, Cole Griffin come out with a whole pile of rocks and making a driveway look nice. It looks like absolute SH. And it's next to my house and I don't want it there. You know, and the thing is, I understand this whole thing started off, we can say, oh, I love STRs, I hate STRs. I never wanted them in my neighborhood. I didn't want them next to me. I have to tolerate this crap going on. People are complaining on my cul-de-sac that they're coming from events downtown. Understand, I moved here as a tourist. I love this village. I love Husby's. I've been at that place so many times. You got a lot of money from me or whatever. I love Al Johnson's. I moved here because I love Sister Bay. I don't like what it's become after COVID. It sucks.
Well, I think we experience over tourism like a lot of areas did, and we're seeing that come back.
All I want to do first is say, take this driveway crap out of code. I look at like Gary Lundquist. I look at what's his brother's name, Cal. Take a look at their driveways. Cal's comes on Sunset and goes on Woodcrest. His place is gorgeous. If somebody buys that and wants to make it an STR, are you going to fill in one of the damn ends of the driveway? Stop it. Just stop it.
Thanks, Kurt.
Duffy on the north side, he's got 3 stinking driveways. Oh, no, he's only got 2 because one is from his pole barn, which is his boat, and the other 2 are not compliant with Denise. It's asinine. And the thing is, I talked to Ken Church, I go, man, this stuff should just be grandfathered in. And he goes to me, you don't know what grandfathering is. I said, yesterday, man, leave it alone, man, it's good. You know, if it got through the cracks, if that was the case, then you still gotta let it go. Because somebody should have been watching over that if it was a problem. The codes for these driveways and stuff, now, all these STRs on Fieldcrest, they all have the proper driveway. They're all peeing and moaning because, we're not giving them the rules to have 12 cars and 30 people in their
I'm
house.
fine with that. That's good regulation. That's really good.
Driveways, they have good driveways down there, but it was built today on today's code. Don't go after Gary Lundquist. Don't go after Duffy's. Don't go after Hoopy's next to me, which is now Yellick, who said to me when he moved into the house, oh, it's not gonna be an SDR until his fiance dumped him. And he said, oh man, I'm not gonna live here now, man. I have to turn it. And we didn't even know until I got a letter from downtown that this was gonna be an STR. My wife and I are going, come on, man, this is the first one now on our cul-de-sac and we don't like it. When I was talking about the stuff going on downtown, my neighbors are saying these people are coming drunk, walking through our properties, going to their STRs because they're not neighbors. They're not being considerate of the people in these neighborhoods. When I was campaigning down on your block, man, that doctor that lives in the first house when you come into Westwood,
His wife is here.
I love you and your husband, man, because they
His
said,
wife
man,
didn't say
we don't
anything
want
offensive.
STRs in this neighborhood. We
It's a
don't
state
want
issue,
them.
Kurt. I hear you, but the. go to
Listen,
your
the
legislature.
STRs are there, you
It's a terrible
support it, and I
statement.
support you.
No, I don't support it in every way. I wish you could put it
Of
in
course,
certain
you,
areas.
man, I'm talking to them yesterday, you business people, I love you, you're a huge part of my community. I love the fact that I got stuck on SBA, no, I love SBAA now. Cause these people have warmed up to me and it's like, man, you are so important to me as a person that lives here year round. Even though most of them cruise to Florida or wherever. You know, we're looking for these things, these events, the ice rink is gonna bring tourists, no, make it, if it's gonna be this deal for our village. Make it for the residents first, and
That's why they're doing it for the residents first.
Good.
Good.
Well, then they're
You know
looking
who's
at,
doing that? All that work is residents that have, most of them have kids.
well, now we're talking this wellness festival that's gonna be in January and stuff, and then I have Don Cox's daughter, who I thought was his wife first until I found out it is his daughter.
I would say don't call out people's names.
Let's not,
in the-
that's
Okay,
not
I'm not
something
gonna
we
call
wanna
out people's
reference here.
names.
Else is fine,
That
but
is
yeah,
not-
don't say names.
It is being
Exclusive people
recorded.
live in Liberty Grove's another thing, man, that are controlling situations here. Like, man. Okay, I've said my piece. Knock off that driveway crap and you'll make me really happy. And help me to get that guy's $3,500 rocks out of his driveway. $3,500 bucks.
Would
Come
it
on.
be advantageous when we get to the next thing on our agenda, which is, the recruiter. When he speaks individually with trustees, maybe he can ask them their opinions on redoing the code or doing something with zoning to address these concerns that we're hearing.
Well, I think based on his experience, and the board will learn about that, I would suggest asking him first.
Asking if he's
Asking-
willing to do that.
No, asking his opinion. He has 35 years of experience in municipal work as well.
He used to be a zoning administrator.
Correct,
Mhm.
correct.
Years ago.
So I think that we ask other people, and he as well. But, and then certainly asking about, one glance at our code would be. But even without that, I think that a conversation back and forth about that is in order for sure. Absolutely.
Yes, Patrice?
I just wanted to say, knowing the workload that Julie has carried the past couple of years, I really think that we should have two positions, zoning administrator and a regular administrator. And I think that somehow the finance committee is gonna have to budget the money and figure it out for whatever year this comes up for, but it's, otherwise we're gonna have a turnover of administrators every couple of years. It's gonna be too much work. It's gonna be too frustrating. It's just gonna be just too much. And let's face it, we're growing as a village. Growing population, we're growing with our housing and our businesses and stuff, and, it's not, the job's not gonna get smaller. It's gonna get bigger.
And I would suggest in that process that we look at the structure of, just the administrative staff as a whole.
So, something that's new to me, like I mentioned, that third party, I think there's unanimous, not just consensus, but it's unanimous that we should separate these roles. And I think that before we say we want a zoning administrator, I think that we should just look and see what separating that roles look like. I mean, I don't think you're hung up on saying, well, this has to be a zoning administrator. If there's a third party that could do it, that makes sense, that other people are doing. I think what your focus is to say, we want these two things separate.
Yeah.
Because in a very real way, we're setting Julie up for failure on that.
Or
And
any-
anybody else that's gonna come in that role.
Yeah.
So, I think that's something that's important that we learn from what we've been doing and say what works, what doesn't work. I would also suspect that as a time where we're getting a new administrator is a good time to address this. I don't think that you were I'm gonna guess, and if I'm wrong, my apologies, but I'm gonna guess when you walked in here, you did not have 100% knowledge of that zoning code. It took a while, and you're pretty damn savvy with zoning, and the learning curve for you,
Right,
it took some time.
yeah, I'm very good at zoning, and I don't pat myself on the back much, but I am. And, it's a challenging code. A lot of great things in that code, I'm not saying throw it out, but there are ways to improve it, like anything. Look at it and the plan commission has been looking at it, trying to revise it, but it needs a major overhaul. But yeah, it takes a while to learn it. Even now, there's still stuff I'm like, oh, I missed that. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of years ago and I stopped pursuing it because I don't think there was not interest at the plan commission and I felt like I was wasting my time. I was talking to, was it Jeff?
Jeff Samuels.
Yeah, I've been talking to him for some time and I think one of the things he enlightened me to is he said,
Sanders.
yes, he said, well, look at, and he had mentioned Wapaka, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't really know much about Wapaka, but just look at their zoning code. I'm like, looked at it, I'm like, wow, this is a lot easier to read and comprehend when the Sister Bay zoning code is the only one I'd looked at for years, for 10 years at that point. And I think that it would be a good idea for us to consider that, and as much as we need to be good stewards of the public's money, a little bit of it's our money, but it's mostly public money that's coming from other sources. I think that might be a worthwhile expenditure if we're getting better relation, or if we're having a better community. And I think that would help with the community feel.
So
I think we all agree.
I've written 2 zoning codes in my life or in my career. And there's kind of a mindset, and Jeff Sanders has that same mindset, if I'm in R1, I should be able to pick up code. And whatever is in the R1 section is all I have to worry about. Versus I have to look at R1 and I have to look at landscaping and I have to look at signage and I have to look at driveway and I have to look at access. People don't know that. So, you know, you have to write your code the way the brain thinks. And so, yes, I think, you know, whether it's a consultant or you have a staff person, you don't have the staff, you won't have the staff for them. So that's probably a first step is trying to get that code rewritten. Because that could also impact whether you need a full-time or a part-time. Right now, you need full-time. With changes in processes, you may be able to get by with part-time.
But we also don't use technology to make things faster,
No, we are very,
ever.
I'm not being negative, I'm just commenting on an observation.
Well, it's the truth, you don't use.
An employee that left, we kind of joked that it's kind of like working in Mayberry sometimes. We are very, very outdated on processes and how we.
Yeah.
And we know that, we all know that.
Well, there's something we could do about it.
There is, but you know what, you need time.
So where do you wanna put the money?
Well, we have to direct our efforts towards it. Our efforts the last couple of years have been directed in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, but I don't know that
This
it's
is
necessarily.
where they need to be
always-
directed until we get it in a good shape, and then, yeah, then we can direct
Understand, but
our.
I mean, technology is, I mean, that's
Well, exactly,
needs
yeah,
to be funded
Well, so
more than people.
the other thing that I've hit upon a couple times, and this might be just a little bit off of this, but the other thing that I think that we've lacked as a village for, I don't know if it's ever been done, is the board to have a strategic plan. And I understand we've got the 20-year plan, but there's a strategic plan that's a different thing. That should be a 5-year plan that should be every time there's an election, every May and June, it should be updated. The first go around, you actually generally bring in an outside party. But after you set up that process and that framework, then you have it refreshed every year.
Yeah, and there's a frame, in other communities, many other communities, not all of them, there's also like a SMART scale, so you have your strategic plan. And then every agenda item on that board agenda has to show how it aligns with the strategic plan, how it aligns with the budget, so, you know, we just kind of do things, you know, we just, on a whim, we do it. A lot of small communities do that, that's not uncommon, but a lot of really organized communities, if you want something on an agenda, you have to show where it lies within your strategic plan to make sure you're not just going out doing things, it's actually following what everybody agreed, this is the direction we're going. And then you have to show me where in the budget was it allocated, so we don't just keep coming up with ideas and, you know, figuring out, you know, putting stress on your finance person who's like, where am I gonna get the money? We don't have that money, and well, I guess we won't do this because we have to fund this now, so. That's how that strategic plan, strategic direction.
Mhm.
Is how a lot of municipalities work, and those are your more professional moving municipalities.
And the communication between the board and the administrator should really be through that strategic plan.
Right.
It shouldn't be through conversations, it should be, Julie should come and look at the strategic plan and say, okay, well, this is their priorities, they wanna do this, well, this doesn't fit into it, so, yeah, either you need to change the strategic plan, or we're not gonna work on that.
And on the flip side too, and board members would have to hold other board members accountable to that then, right? Because
Mhm.
we'll get board members who, they just wanna do it because they wanna do it. And the other members have to hold them accountable, like, wait a minute, that's not within our
It's not the
strategic plan.
priority.
Anyways, that's, yes, so you have a lot going on there, and you'll never get that strategic plan as long as your person is still doing your zoning, because there's no time to dedicate to that.
Yeah, if we hired somebody from the outside for 1 year, it's not gonna get updated, I think is what it'll come down to, and then when you miss 1 year, then it's gonna fall off the wayside, and then you don't do it.
Yeah, and we see too, you know, when all so the state requires us to do plans, which we've now done. But they consume a lot of the administrator's time, right? And so to say, well, the administrator, even if we get. There's just not the time to do it all, I guess is the easiest way to say it.
And then that strategic plan is also something that helps the administrator prioritize too. Not only prioritize the administrator's time, but also the village board resources, because we don't think about it, but our meetings are a finite resource. We can only go over so many things.
Yeah, it lets them know what they're supposed to be focusing on.
Mhm.
Instead of, sometimes you get individual requests or.
Well, and some of that stuff you do deal with on the fly, because not everything's thought about. But to actually have it come to you and to say, okay, this does fit in our strategic plan, but we're looking at this 3 years from now. We haven't addressed this or thought about this. We should really talk about this next spring when we review our strategic plan, because things change, things come up, things we're not gonna think about. I think it's very important that we start doing that. I think it's a great idea. It's long overdue. And I think we should get on that this winter.
So I would say that the time, go ahead, Bridget.
Oh, sorry, no, make your comment.
I think the time to do that is gonna be after the election. And like, we can start the process before then.
Well, the framework,
yeah.
framework, we don't necessarily have to pick specifics, but a lot of the framework can be done.
I just want to make the comment. Coming from being like a regular citizen to a recent new board member, I appreciate you telling us what's kind of been going on and what the workload is in the office, and better look into what the staff has to do, because I don't know that. I mean, I'm not on, well, now I'm on personnel, but I've not attended a meeting yet because I just joined. I mean, we just see you in the meetings and stuff and doing all these things. We're not in the office working with you guys. So I think updates on workloads and stuff, I mean, that's great information. And I appreciate you really helping us to help the next person out to more define what's going on and what's necessary. I feel like the average person doesn't know what you guys all have to do.
Yeah, I don't think the board members know. you
No,
know?
I didn't. I mean, I know some of it, obviously, but I don't know until reading this and then hearing how many hours per week and all these things and how every single rule adds to it, but we're not all on every committee. We don't know every single rule that gets added, so it's difficult to see the additional workload. You know what I mean? Like, we don't see it. So I appreciate you saying it and helping us make sure that we don't have such a difficult time in the future.
Thank you, and I'm very concerned about the village, and I do want to leave you in the best hands possible. I mean, I've never. You take the job because you're committed to the community, so you don't want to see it fail, even if you're retiring. I mean,
Right.
That's why I went to the personnel committee about the recruiter, because I'm afraid you're running out of time. I'm really concerned about that, and what happens then. You know, we know what happened last time we had a 10-month gap. When I walked into the office, they're like, nobody's done anything for 10 months, here's your pile, and I'm just like, where do you start? So I want the village to be in a position where it's an easy transition to a new person. You're not behind, things are caught up, the files are accurate. I wanna, if I can, have notes for them on, where we're at on grants, where we're at on contracts and all of that stuff. So I wanna leave you in a good position, so.
I think that's wonderful.
So with the job description then,
I think this has been a very good conversation. I think this has really helped to flush a lot of things out, so I think it's productive, but I don't know that we're gonna actually wanna change this job description right now. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Zoning's part of it, it's not.
Well, we can keep the job description, but we can also tell the recruiter, this is what we're looking for, and we can have finance try to figure it out, because it is 6 of us, and I don't think Denise would disagree. I don't want to speak for her, want these roles separated.
She's gone both ways.
So I think that we decide what we decide. I mean, like Denise is.
Well, that are fine.
So-
6 out of 7 of us, for sure, want these roles separated, as far as I'm hearing.
Yeah, you got it.
You didn't hear from me.
I didn't hear from you.
No, 'cause I
Okay,
don't know
5.
yet. I honestly don't know yet. I really don't, and I
So-
think there's other things that could be done. I don't think that, because it
No,
wasn't.
but again, like Nate said, there are other things. It doesn't, I'm not disagreeing with
I think
them.
that we should look at the entire, the structure of the staff as a whole, if we're gonna be doing that as well.
Sure. Would you agree with that we should look at separating the roles, even if that's not a person, that's a third party? Okay.
so would
So
you
5
want
votes.
to
We haven't even got any candidates yet.
Well,
Well, this is,
So what
would
we're
you-
saying is
like
that
you-
we have a bad code, and so that means we need to add more people.
So when you meet with
It
your,
seems backwards to me.
I'm with you.
so when you meet with the recruiter, you might wanna talk to them about the fact that,
One
look,
conversation.
this is the way the job description is written. You know, we'd really like somebody with familiarity with zoning, but we want to look at separating that position out. So that they're not looking for this heavy zoning person, somebody that's familiar, gets the principles of it and can supervise a zoning administrator. But that at least gives you time where they know enough to limp along. But it gives you time then to find a zoning administrator,
And to fix the
but
code.
then you have to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Louise, I agree, we need to fix the code, but we've
But
been talking about fixing code for 8 or 10, 12 years.
I really
and
wasn't
it's
just saying
gonna take
that.
a long time.
Yeah.
We still need to have a human there or an outside resource, and maybe it is a third party
Yeah,
to be around for that process.
well, when we get into the scope of work, I'm not sure if you guys all read it. But when you look at the scope of work, one of the very first things they do is, but that's a separate agenda item, so we can discuss that when we discuss that. Nate, unless you want to
Yeah.
keep talking about the job description.
No, I think we're good on the job description. I mean, yeah, I think we should move on to the contract. I think we've got a lot of information out there, and I think that that's something that, as this comes back to personnel, I hope you guys would consider that
Okay.
in our discussion.
Okay,
So
then
as far as the scope of work goes, when you look at this, the information we got from IPA.
Louise, can you just hold on a
Yeah.
second? So for the minutes, purposes of the minutes then, are they to show by consensus, the board agreed to proceed with the job description as written, knowing that the position may change in the future?
I would even go as far as to say that there's strong consideration of separating the roles of zoning and.
Not for me, but. if you-
Well, but you,
Not for me either.
I would say.
I think there has
I
to be an
think-
office that works
I just
together
don't
and
know
helps
yet.
each other
It's-
out when there's an
Wait
issue where you got
till we
people here. I like the idea of a third party on the outside helping out at times. But there are costs to all the stuff. It's like bringing in a zoning administrator separate. Where are we gonna stop with these expenditures?
We have the most headcount of any administrative office in the county, besides Sturgeon Bay.
The most what?
I
But you
understand.
have to make sure the order can pick it up.
Yeah.
What that means.
We have more people in our administrative structure than any municipality in Northern Door.
Patrice, did I hear you right saying you were for separating them? Okay,
Now,
so you've got 4 that are in.
I can't make a decision on that right now.
I'd say there's 4 that think that it's something that is worth doing, and I think you've got 2 that want more information. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it should be taken into consideration.
Yeah, let's take that into consideration as personnel
Sure.
picks this issue up again, and yes, Kurt.
I'm gonna say a smart village doesn't need that person out there writing fines to you or anybody. I mean, that's one of those things where make the code so, gosh, man, it is not so goofy. That we have this Jeff come the other night, he's crying about the weeds. I have a weed, but I think behind my house today, I saw a weed.
You mean Steve Sauter?
Yeah, him.
Yeah, okay.
Steve is his name?
Yeah, Steve Sauter. Yeah.
Hey, here's an idea. What if we find an administrator, right, that's.
When we find an administrator,
Yeah, it's when.
Who, let me finish, what if we find one that maybe isn't as strong in code? If that happens, maybe they are, whatever, because we don't know where we're gonna choose, or who we're gonna choose. But we do commit to hire an outside firm for an extended period of time, whatever that may be, to rewrite our code. While that administrator is involved in the job, and yes, maybe we don't hire a full-time zoning administrator that we have for eternity. And in turn, we get a simpler code where we don't need that role fully. And why don't we just commit to doing all this right now? And then making things simpler and having less headcount, but we gotta commit to doing that. We can't just talk that we wanna do it. We gotta commit to doing it.
I don't disagree with that, Chad, but I think we need something more concrete to say this is what we want to do. I mean, I guess if we want to paint those broad brushstrokes right now,
Well, we gotta do the work for that.
yeah, we can paint that broad brushstroke saying that we want to simplify our code, update our code and simplify it. Do we want to say rewrite it entirely?
Well,
Or do we-
know, I mean, we don't wanna change who we are or what we've been and, and obviously. there's ways to take a lot of what our code is and just put it in a different format and make it easier and connect it, you know? And then, yes, while we're going through the code, the things that seem ridiculous, we can maybe pull out, and things that we're missing, we can put in. Like, yeah, it's a big process, but we have to commit to hiring somebody to help us do this, because we can't do it on our own. Our staff can't do it on their own. We need a resource to do this.
I think to Kurt's point, I think we need to understand what the financial ramifications are before we commit to something like that. And I think we need to vet it out. I think that we should absolutely have personnel work through that process. But I don't think we've got enough information to say, yeah, this is, go do this. I think right now, I believe general direction is we should work towards that. And I understand that may be frustrating because you're saying, no, we want to do something right now.
No, we have to commit to doing it right now, so we do it.
So the thing we have to do then is we have to hold each other accountable
Yes.
moving forward, because right now. We don't know what we're really committing to. We need to work through that process, and then let's hold each other accountable to get that done.
I think we're committing to having simpler code and simpler processes to effectively allow us to have less staff going forward. Because it's a lot easier to do. I mean, this is what we're all talking about. Julia said it. We've all said it in different, maybe a couple different words. We know, and that will save money over time. I think.
Yeah, I think we should commit to starting the process.
Yeah.
Of finding someone to simplify and update the code. I think starting that process is fine, and whatever that involves, looking for firms, seeing how much that would cost, what's the time frame for that? I don't think that's unreasonable.
Well, if you wanna budget it for.
We want to put that on the.
That's gonna come
I'm
back.
saying I have no
Item
idea.
5.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, but we gotta start learning
Right,
that,
but
exactly.
yeah, if we don't check, how will we ever know?
We will, right.
Do you feel like you've got enough direction for personnel on that, where the village board wants to go with that, understanding there's some weeds we have to figure out, right? You good with that, Chad?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're,
Work, mainly.
you
We'll
know,
find out what.
Hurt, you feel heard, because you said a lot today, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying
You
that.
say I felt hurt.
You feel heard, is
I
that-
feel hurt.
okay,
I tell you that the compliance officer from day one
You're good.
irritated me.
okay.
Because if you have to hire some cat from the outside to come in and they, oh, did you pull the weed, man, or did you do this? Like, come on.
Compliance officer was a compromise because at the time we were talking about a part-time police officer.
Oh,
And the majority of the board said, no, we'd rather have a compliance officer than a police officer. And that's how the compliance officer came along.
There's so many outlets coming up, man, and it's like, I'm, you talk police, you talk safety, you talk this, we're talking about. Getting ready for Fall Festival when the truck drives down with dynamite into the street and blows the place up. Are you kidding me, man?
Kurt, I don't wanna see that in the minutes, let's just,
No, I know, but it's a reality.
you have to put it in the minutes, but I guess I'm saying, I don't want to see that sort of thing.
The people safe, taken care of.
So wait, are we on,
or what,
which part are we on right now?
Okay, we're still on 4A, I think it's time to move on to 4B if we
Yeah.
got enough direction on there, are we? Eventually?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, we're just gonna, the job description as written is what is gonna get published or posted.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're gonna work on it in the future though.
Yes.
Yes.
sounds good.
Okay. Let's go on to 4B then, the contract with IPA. Administrative
So
improvement.
when you look at the scope of work, I would start there
Do you know what
Um,
page that's on?
in the
7?
thing, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
What page,
I
please?
didn't know. if you-
7.
7, okay.
So if
Thank
you look
you.
at scope of work relative to what we were just discussing, I think that this will help you to understand that in working with, well, first of all, it's IPA. So if you know, you can do your own due diligence on them. The bios on both of the people that are in the organization are in the back. Deep experience at the administrator level. Throughout the state. So from a recruitment standpoint, one of the first things they'll do is you will receive a position assessment survey from them. And you will receive it, as will staff members, supervisors. And so you'll fill that in so that they get a feedback from each of you individually as well as staff. So that would be, current supervisors. So that would be Eric or Megan or, you know, and, then, there will be a review and possible enhancement of the position description. So they have a job description, right? And so we'll work with them on that job description. Some of that would be, and that would be in conjunction with the survey responses that they get. And then they'll come up with a profile brochure, a custom landing page. This is all the marketing piece of it. And marketing materials we would provide, you know, so we would provide the assets for that. So that could be video, it could be photos. We'd work with them on the text. So description of the village and so forth. And so then you see next is the video that highlights the position in the village. You should go to their website, see the work they've done with other communities when they've done recruitment. Then you can see where they advertise. So they'll advertise at the WCMA, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, to which we were a member, LinkedIn, and the American Association of Municipal Executives.
So I just want to say something about that. So when they were talking to us last week, I think the strongest method they're gonna have for reaching people is actually gonna be their direct contacts.
That's the next bullet point.
Okay.
So the next is that promote the position to the IPA network and extensive LinkedIn connection. So they've been in the business a long time. So they've got around 5,000 with targeted outreach to dynamic administrator professionals. So that's sort of the first step. The page before that, you guys, would give you, the following page gives you timeline. I'm just gonna skip around for 1 sec. So week 1 is kickoff call, develop marketing collateral and post position. So that's next week. So we have a personnel meeting next week. So that will happen then. It's an open meeting. Everybody's welcome to come. And, providing everyone's okay with this firm, Jay will attend, he'll zoom in. Because he can't attend, well, I guess he could. I don't know.
I don't know that we really want to put, he will come up here as time goes on, but I don't know.
Yeah,
if we need him for that one.
there are some things that he wants to be in person for, and that will be the interviews and we'll get there in a second. So that week 1 will be next week. And so you'll see that the schedule, again, is between week 1 and week 6. So week 6 would be in-person interviews. And as he said, dates will be based on the Village of Sister Bay preferences. And then this is sort of searches are always pretty organic. So they kind of flow and see what happens and, you know, again, see what the candidate pool looks like. Then application interview process. So they recruit, they collect the application materials. They do the review and screening of candidates, and then they make recommendations to the hiring team. So one thing that in terms of the hiring team, in terms of interviews, so all of the trustees would interview as a group. The supervisors would interview as a group. And then there'll be a group of community leaders that we choose to interview as a group, probably 6 or 7, something like that. And then they will be involved in, so there's 2 individuals here. The individual that will basically moderate those interviews and just make sure that they're moving along and staying on track and stuff is Jess Wild. So that's the other individual, that's the other partner in this, having done it multiple times. So if you look at the organization, so she's a communications and marketing person to a great extent, but she'll also basically help us with each of those interview sessions. There's also, we can also opt to give individuals mini tours of the village, depending on who the individual is and how we're progressing. And then, so that's under here, coordinate community tour and in-person interviews with village leadership, hiring team, and key staff. So that's what that would be. So that essentially comes after a review and screening of candidates and then making recommendations. So that every single person that's a stakeholder at the board level, and then also with our residents are aware and to a certain extent involved in upfront meets and conversations. I'd say that when we interviewed, we interviewed two firms, and we very much preferred, what we chose, that's probably not fair, but we chose, Innovative Public Advisors for a couple of reasons. First of all, they have a lot of experience, and they have a lot of experience in Wisconsin, and they have a lot of experience with municipalities like ours, we're small, and then larger ones as well.
So I think when you're saying experience, you mean the individuals that are part of it.
The individuals that are part of it, they know the lay of the land.
They do, but
They understand, they kind of get.
IPA is a relatively new firm, though, I guess is what I'm saying, is it's
Yeah.
not that, it's the individuals that make up it that have got experience, not the actual
Right.
firm.
Right, and they have an extensive network, as Nate said, and that's helpful. Julie said in the interviews, Julie preferred them as well. The other organization was certainly very skilled, very qualified, but we felt that this was a better fit for Sister Bay.
Well, the biggest, and one really big factor on there too, and Julie, I think you cited this, is they're very confident they're gonna find somebody in this timeline. They're very confident, and I guess I would tell you that based on me already hearing from somebody about this, you know, and it came out on Tuesday, I'm optimistic as well. Jay has got experience and he can step in there as an interim if he have to. And he said, I can do that. I can be your person as an interim, but I don't think that's gonna come down to it. Because he thinks we're gonna have somebody in place by then.
But just be clear, there's no way that we want to rush this.
No.
And so the timeline, which is why they noted that in here, the timeline could change based on, you know, what we're doing. So we asked the question, what makes for the best, the most optimum search? That, you know, and he said communication. He must have said the word communication 20 times. Very, very, very important. And by the way, Sarah was there as well, and we asked Sarah her opinion. And which is really, 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 really important. So communication back and forth through the process of, you know, putting together the profile, putting together the marketing and things like that. But even, even after that, and so, you know, that was, I thought, really, really important.
I think one thing that I really liked about them was the first firm, at the end of the 10 weeks, if they don't find someone, or you enter a new contract
To start
for
again.
another 10 weeks. IPA was like, no, we keep going. till we
We'll
got
keep
something."
going, yeah.
So,
I'll make a motion, we accept this,
proposal.
proposal.
Okay.
I just have to move.
Motion by Kadanko, second by Shampo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nice work, guys.
Well,
So I'll have Jay forward a contract then, Nate, read this one.
Can I ask a quick timeline question?
Oh, sure.
I know it says week 1 is next week, but you said that they do an interview or a survey of some sort
That's
of
when they
every
send that out.
trustee and, okay,
when
so
they send
that's
it out.
in there.
that's week 1, so.
I was like, it says they post the position, but wouldn't they want to do the interviewing of the
Yeah,
staff and everything?
Yeah, they'll do the survey.
Well, they can post our position. if
They'll
they
post
have
a position.
Title, we already have that determined, and then while they're reading out candidates,
Yeah.
they'll have time to get our input.
Right, I just didn't know if the surveys and the talking to staff and trustees would change.
They won't
How
talk to
the
staff and
position-
trustees. Staff and trustees will talk to the candidates that we might think about hiring.
I
The
thought you.
survey
Mhm.
goes to all the trustees and
Okay.
staff. The survey essentially asks questions about this position assessment.
So then they'll read those surveys and then they post the position?
And then they'll review it, enhance the description, then come back to personnel, talk to us, see what we want to do, and then it gets posted. Then, when there's candidates, 3 or 4, however many they have, then trustees talk to these candidates. And then supervisors talk to these candidates in a separate group. And then community leaders talk to the candidates in a separate group, and those are moderated by Jess.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
That's a good question.
Okay. Motion in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And by the way, they prepared the press release and the announcement and so forth, so we can.
And one thing I would say is it's entirely possible sometimes we reach out to any one of you all you wanna do is speak positively and refer them back and say there will be a process. You know, they have to go back through IPP. So like when I had one individual ask me, I said, well, this is great, this is what's going on here. And there'll be an announcement and you'll see it, you'll have to go through that process.
I think we're responsible for the background checks, I think is what we.
Yeah, we are. Mhm. Yeah, background test, that's checks and. Forget what the other part was.
Okay. 4C, you guys got an email on that, house cleaning from Randy?
I,
He sent-
Can I go back,
Sure.
because there's the other one, which is, the second part of that is the interim services.
Do we want to accept that right now with them? I mean, is it,
I don't know, it's,
They said they did scope of work on interim services, meaning like if we need interim,
I think we got time to
the
decide on that, right?
administrator, not.
okay, so hold off on that.
Yeah.
I'll let them know we only want one contract.
Okay.
4C already came to us and closed, this is just,
And I would just share within that, where it's not ready to decide on those services yet, but it's very likely we may, right?
Yeah.
So it's not 100% no, it's just not a yes yet, is that is that?
Yeah, and I'm
possible?
thinking in my mind.
Or does that not work that way?
No, I think it does, I'm thinking in my mind, if you signed it, then, I'm not saying the IPA would do this, but somebody could be like, well, I'm gonna drag my feet, cause I might get this interim job after too, so, they're not that type of company.
No, yeah, I would just
Hold
keep it
on.
open-ended on that.
you guys are not seeing that?
I
Yeah,
am now, yes.
okay, at 3:02, you want to take a moment to read that? Did you guys get the email? Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to accept the administrator agreement as signed and presented.
Okay, motion by White,
Second.
second by Hausen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Okay, so we have matters to be placed on a future agenda referred to committee, official or employee, what do we?
So is it, based on your conversation, is one recommendation to send to plan commission the recommendation that they start looking at someone to rewrite the zoning code?
I,
Is that one thing?
yeah, I believe that's,
Yeah.
Yeah, to start, looking for somebody and just getting a general idea of what that might cost.
understanding that's not next week, that's gonna be in
Oh,
October.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, or
Yeah.
It's good because by state law, you're supposed to be, so we adopted our comprehensive plan in spring, you have 1 year by state law to update your zoning map. So, somebody can come in and kind of do all that at one time, so. And then I think the other part of the conversation was to recommend to personnel to start looking at, alternatives for zoning enforcement.
Yeah, to see if there's a third party or how that could be dealt with, just. Okay. That's all.
Louise, do you want that on Wednesday's agenda?
Yeah, sure.
You,
And that's all I had.
anybody else? Motion to adjourn would be in order,
so move.
motion by Karanko,
Second?
second by White, all those in favor?
I,
We're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Guessing Jay will send that contract over right away because he knows.
Let me turn that up.
Wanted to walk in and cut it off.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
Should you-
I won't have-
Yeah, so.